Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Rolling Stories, the HR podcast where we delve deep into the world of human resources, culture, and transformation. I'm your host, Adrian Tan, and today we have a very special guest joining us on the show, Ramya Ganesh, a seasoned expert in culture transformation. Ramya is a trailblazer in empowering companies to revolutionize their cultures for the better. She brings a wealth of experience and insights to the table, and today we'll be exploring some key facets of her journey and expertise, from defining the essence of company culture to navigating workplace biases and driving impactful transformation. So sit back, relax, and get ready to embark on a journey of transformation and enlightenment as we dive deep into the realm of culture, leadership, and the evolving landscape of HR. Ramya, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
For those of us who is very new to this concept, how do you define culture to begin with?
Culture is values in action, right? Your organization's culture is your organization's values in action. For example, an organization has diversity and inclusion as one of their values. Great. But how does that translate into day-to-day actions and behaviors of the workplace? Does everyone feel welcome there? Do people have a voice and feel safe to share opinions and ideas? Does the voice get heard? Do their leaders walk the talk? If yes, the organization does indicate a culture of being inclusive. Else, it's just a fancy name on their values book. So your actions need to align with your values to establish a strong culture, right? And it's important to have a strong corporate culture because it is a strategic asset that can significantly impact you succeed as an organization. It's all about attracting and retaining talent, driving innovation, achieving your goal, right? And it's just not me saying it. There are several studies, including the one from Harvard Business Review, that tells us that an organization with a strong corporate culture see a 4x increase in revenue growth compared to companies with a weak culture. So there you go.
Could you give us a positive as well as a negative example on how culture matters when they are aligned, perfectly aligned, and when they are not aligned?
Maybe I could talk a little bit about the green flag, red flag here. So if you look at one indicator of a strong company culture, that to me would be transparency and open communication, right? So typically you're looking at an organization where communication flows freely. There are no information silos. Again, people and leaders specifically walk the talk, and everybody is comfortable voicing their opinions and concerns. There are no hidden agendas. Now, that's an indicator of a strong corporate culture. And it works to everyone's benefit because the minute I feel comfortable sharing and voicing my opinion, I feel like my voice is being heard, I know I have psychological safety in that organization, and I know that I can thrive in that work setup. Now, if you flip it, and if you look at a organization which lacks respect, right? Now, businesses are here to be profitable, no doubt. However, it cannot be at the cost of not respecting those who are helping you to be profitable, right? Undermining someone's value, undermining someone's work, taking credit for someone else's work, exclusion, rude and condescending language during conversation, gaslighting are all signs of respect. Now, imagine yourself in that particular work environment. You're not going to be thriving. You're not going to be surviving either. So that's an indicator of a negative work culture that you want to be staying as far away as you can.
And I would imagine the people who remain in those companies, actually those who can amplify the negativity of those companies.
It's all contagious. It's like the pandemic. So good attracts good and bad attracts bad. So if you're going to be having a bad work culture and a person fixated in that culture is going to be multiplying, as you said, that particular negativity that's going to move around in that workplace.
Your trigger to this culture transformation actually began at a very early life experience where a sexual harassment issue lit a fire in you. How that actually shaped the perspective that you have right now?
I was raised in a household where my mom and dad used to go to work early in the morning and return late in the evening, enter the kitchen together, make dinner for us, and then we used to dine together, right? So I grew up in my very own beautiful world where gender didn't matter and it didn't make a difference. It just mattered that we were doing the right things and doing things right to bring food to the table and be happy. It was as simple as that. Fast forward a few years, I was doing an internship as part of my master's degree in a city very far away from my own. And this was with a big brand, right? And I was eager to learn the ropes of navigating that corporate world. First week into the internship, the mentor who was assigned to me, a very senior official then, while in his office room, just casually suggested that I could complete my internship without doing any work in just return for some sexual favors. In that moment, as scary and intimidating as it was, I realized that the most powerful word in this entire universe is no. And this particular incident changed the way I looked at the world and got me thinking of privilege. Now, in spite of all the intersectionalities that work against me, I was indeed privileged to be raised in a family, in a loving family, that gave me the courage to voice out the right and wrong.
Mhm.
And that voice became my purpose. Right? In my own small way, I wanted to be the voice to those who didn't have one. And that set course for my DEI journey, I would say, Adrian. So a scary and an intimidating story from a very long ago, but shaped the way I looked at the world and changed my perspective to equity and inclusion.
Yeah, it's usually during the worst of times where we are able to find a grand purpose on what we do. But having heard from you, I do also find it quite frightening as a parent of myself. Although my daughters are still years away from their own internship and going to the workforce, I just can't even imagine how shocked and how frightening it would be for them if they were to be placed in the same situation. I think on that note, it would also be quite a good segue for us to look at perhaps from the inclusion, because this is one of the key challenges that many working parents actually find themselves in different working culture. So as a working mom yourself, obviously you front row seat to this inclusion challenges that many companies face. Perhaps one of up to three straightforward ways that you think companies can better support working.
I have a feisty 14-year-old daughter, so I'm managing a teenager at home right now, and a 6-year-old fur baby, a total goofball, right? So as a corporate mom, the struggles of juggling motherhood and a career have been real, right? But I've just been able to navigate these challenges fairly well, I must say, with some meticulous planning, decent time management, and a supportive network. It does definitely take a village to raise a child. So to answer that question, I'm going to backtrack a bit and share a personal story and throw some positive light on this, right? I got a raise during my pregnancy at a time when I was actually managing some complications and working from home. I remember that day very well. I got a call from my manager, answered that phone, and the first thing I heard, "Thank you for all your hard work, Ramya. Congratulations. You will be receiving your increment letter shortly." So I opened the letter once I received it, and I saw a significant drill. Now, considering my condition then, I couldn't jump with joy, but I definitely had a tear roll down. I was emotional. That particular incident made me believe that my contribution and hard work was being recognized. My pregnancy was just considered as a natural process, and as it should be, and not as a reason to hold back my growth, right? My manager knew my potential, and he also knew that my potential shouldn't be limited by my biological clock. As a result, I stayed on in that organization for more than 11 years. Inclusion does this. It gives you engagement. It gives you productivity. It gives you talent retention, the right PR, all the ingredients for business success, right? So be inclusive. It's really a no-brainer out there. So now coming to the specificities, right? What can companies do to support its employees double acting as a caregiver? Let's not talk about working moms, working dads. If you are a caregiver and you have these responsibilities when you get back home, these are a few things that the companies can potentially do to support them. Number one, inclusive policies and benefits, right? I think it's high time we start thinking beyond just maternity leave and start thinking of parental leave. Many organizations are actually heading that right direction there, with Spotify, as we all know, being one of the best, with its, I think, 6 month fully paid parental leave, regardless of gender and sexual orientation. And the best thing is the employees can take those 6 months, I think, in a staggered manner until about the third birthday of their child. So this is a fantastic goal for all of us to look at and say, one day as an organization, I would like to get there, right? I think the second thing that we can also look at with respect to being inclusive in terms of policies and benefits is to look at a subsidized childcare option, right? If you see countries like Singapore and South Korea, financial cost of raising children, the complications or difficulties in managing work and family responsibilities and commitments are identified as some of the top reasons for low fertility rate that we see in these countries, right? So it's important as an organization to somewhere ease out that financial burden for these new parents. And that kind of takes me to my second item that companies can look at, which is flexible work options. Now, there is no one size fits all. We can talk about hybrid work, remote work, compressed work weeks. I think there are several countries who have gone through a 4-day work week pilots, and it's going to come sooner than we actually imagine. And I hope it reaches us earlier as well. We can look at flex hours. We can look at flex load, which means you can work part-time. We can look at flex place, where if you have a company with 2 offices in a particular city, then you kind of choose between working out of any of those 2 offices based on where you are located in that city and your convenience, right? So that's your flex place. So there are multiple options that you can potentially provide in terms of flexible work arrangements. And we've also had a welcome announcement in Singapore, as you would know, that starting 1st of December, every employer must have a send process for employees to ask for flexible work arrangements. So I think that we are heading in the right direction with respect to that. And the third, for me, is employee resource groups. Have you ever wondered why ERGs are so effective? It's the you are not alone phenomenon, right? What do ERGs do? They basically create a space where you can connect with colleagues who share similar experiences. So one of the key strengths of these ERGs is the sense of belonging they foster. And this sense of belonging validates your experience, and it also allows you to foster a sense of community, all of which is extremely important for engagement, right? Powerful example of ERG's impact comes from one of my former colleagues who stayed in the organization long enough. And the reason he gave was that his emotional salary was very high when he was actively involved with his ERG. So companies, it's important to invest in your ERGs and create an ecosystem for them to thrive. So again, my top C, inclusive qualities, benefits, look at flexible work options, and making employee resource groups.
I think as parents who have gone through the working environment before, it really helped me to also better understand why it is so significant. And as a personal employer before, I can also understand how parents may react. I think in a way, when you have your organization supporting you when you are at, I wouldn't say at your worst moment, I'm not saying being parent is a worst moment, but it does come with a set of challenges. Definitely when you are there next to me when I'm down, you can be assured that when I'm okay, I'll be there for you. So I think it's in a way, you do me a favor, I'll do you a favor, which I believe many companies just tend to overlook because it's quite hard to quantify maybe. But I guess if we are able to just go back to the very basis of a human being, where you are talking about purpose, we're talking about mission, we are talking about helping others, serving others, all this should come very naturally. And to what you ended with about the flexible work arrangements, again, it's a very good segue for us to the next question, because culture building, at least during my time, has always been, okay, let's go for drinking party, let's go for karaoke night, let's meet up, let's do team bonding, paintball, etc., etc. But pandemic has created this situation where most of the time we are not seeing each other physically. It's all virtual. Sometimes you don't even get to see the colleague. Would that really have a very strong impact on how you try to drive culture? How can companies maintain their culture in such a hybrid kind of environment?
It's not a hidden story anymore in terms of how bringing people back to in-person interactions is extremely important to foster collaboration, have that spontaneous brainstorming, and also have that collective effervescence, all of which leads to a sense of team spirit, right? So it's extremely important to bring people back into the office to foster that culture of being together and getting things done and making things happen. However, I think we need to have a little bit of a caution when we start doing that, because if we take a route of gaining control, then that's going to be counterproductive. Because traditionally, we do have examples of managers having a traditional mindset of oversight where they feel a little bit of a loss of control when it comes to not having people in the same location as them, where they're not able to see them, talk to them as and when they please. So, because they believe that in-person presence offers that sense of accountability. On the contrary, a focus on just a FaceTime presence doesn't necessarily guarantee productivity, right? Trusting your employees and measuring output and rewarding based on performance are a far more effective strategy than just micromanaging time and space. So I'm a big fan of hybrid work, but do it right. Talk about the why very clearly, not from a sense of control, but from a sense of culture that you would like to bring in terms of bringing people together to thrive. So how do you make that hybrid environment work, right? And how do you continue to build that culture in this hybrid sense of work? It's very simple. Go back to your basics. Look at your culture. Look at your values and desired behaviors, right? I can give you a quick example. In one of my previous organizations, I was part of the team driving smart working transformation in North America while I was based out of California, and then for Southeast Asia when I returned to Singapore. So as part of this transformation, we used to get every team to build their team charters. Now, what's a team charter? It's a manifesto. It's an engagement guide on how you would work together as a team, how you would connect, how you would communicate, run meetings, what flexibility meant to you in terms of co-working hours, what technology you would use for what, how would you socialize as a team, which is extremely important for building that team spirit. So it's basically a nice playbook for any existing member or a new member joining the team to understand how to work well with this entire team, right? And the best part of this charter is that it's not built unilaterally by just the team leader. It's built collectively by the entire team. So what happens then is a sense of collective responsibility and accountability to make it work. So go back to the basics, look at what desired behaviors you need in a team and put it in the form of a nice team charter so everyone knows what it takes to be successful in this team. Then you have the usual suspects, right? Have technology that work for you, have inclusive technology. Keep in mind that not all platforms can work in every country. So be inclusive in your technology, have alternatives, prioritize meetings that are smart, have agendas for meetings, meet to make decisions, meet to brainstorm, right? If a simple issue can be resolved in an email, please don't invite 10, 100 people into that meeting to talk about that particular issue, right? Instead, just send out an email and close it out. And when you are inviting remote participants into meetings, to please solicit their input so they don't feel like they are afterthought. So have smart meetings, plan social events, and even virtual gatherings are possible. And we've seen that through the pandemic, that teams have connected through scavenger hunts and, coffee chats and just trivia nights. There are many such examples of having virtual social events. Lead by example, right? Avoid scheduling crucial meetings outside of the co-working hours that you have decided as a team, unless it's an emergency. We all understand flexibility is a two-way street. And model healthy work-life boundaries. Today, we are blurred with our work life and our personal life. There's those blurring boundaries. However, it's still important to respect and model a healthy work-life balance. And finally, all of this is not a one-time activity, right? Keep it iterative. Try to track progress, refine your steps, understand the pulse of your employees, get feedback, and go ahead and repeat the process if you have to. So that, I think, will be extremely important to make hybrid work for all of us.
When you mentioned about the scheduling of events, that a lot of bad examples came straight to my head. I have a friend who works in a telecommunication company. Of course, it just happened to be in his department. The supervisor will deliberately organize meeting very early in the morning, very close to just before lunchtime, just after lunchtime, and just before knockoff. Because the supervisor, who is no longer there, always have this fear that, my people is not working remotely. So I got to make sure that they are, in a way, tied down to their computer in front. But obviously, none of them are happy. And because they really put in effort at work and all, it just become a very bad situation overall.
It gives them this sense of lack of trust. My manager doesn't trust me, right? And when there is no trust as an underlying foundation, nothing else stays strong above.
So on that notion, what are some of the green flags, red flags that one should keep your eye on when you are joining a company with a mandate to drive culture transformation?
I'm going to talk about the red flags first. Number one, lack of psychological safety. Now, what does it look in action or behavior? When you see blaming and shaming, when you see passive aggressive behavior, when you don't feel safe taking risks or making mistakes or expressing yourself freely, you run, right? The second is a indication of a burnout culture. And what does that look like? Employees are expected to work long hours constantly, and there is almost little to no recognition or appreciation for any of the effort. Now, that is an indication of a stressed out workforce, and that's another culture that you would like to stay away from. I did briefly talk about lack of respect as well, or a place where you don't feel that you belong. So those are typically your red flags. Now, let's look at green flag. I did talk about being transparent and having an open communication, which is extremely important, again, to establish trust. Another indicator of a good culture is an organization that provides learning and growth opportunities to its people, right? The company invests in its employees' professional and personal development. It could be in the form of training programs, tuition reimbursements, or opportunities to attend interesting conferences. So what organizations see is that employee growth is an investment in the company's future. So that's a definite big green flag. And one other green flag, personally to me, is a diverse senior leadership board chart. It's all about representation, right? Diverse senior leadership team reflects the workforce, reflects the customer base, and it reflects the broader community that the company operates in. So the minute I see a org chart of a senior leadership team, which is diverse with different indicators, I am sold on the culture aspect of that organization, at least partly. So yeah, keep things in mind.
When I look at certain upcoming panel discussion, and maybe I'm superficial, but when I realize it's all men of the same race, I wouldn't even bother, booking a slot to check out the session, because it's just same old, same old. And I think that's a very good indication, because those are things that if you are just interviewing at a company, you can easily find out. You don't have to wait until you're in the trenches, you're already 3 months in, and then you'll be toying with the idea, should I go? But then I'm 3 months into the job, maybe I should just hang on and create even more situation for yourself. So I hope with that, people who are looking to take on any form of cultural transformation projects, that will be something that you can keep in the back of your mind. Now, looking ahead, what personally excites you about the future of evolving workplace culture, for the better, obviously? What's some advice you may have for HR leaders driving this change?
Looking ahead, I think what I'm really excited about and what I'm hoping for organizations to do or continue doing is this 3-ingredient recipe, right? Number one, to look at a culture of well-being. Now, a 2022 survey by a corporate wellness magazine found that nearly a third of workers surveyed reported that their mental health had declined over the past year. And multiple studies have showed us that there is a rise in stress and burnout among employees across industries, across locations, right? So it's important to focus on well-being. The second is a culture of lifelong learning. And the World Economic Forum's 2020 Future of Jobs report predicted that while 85 million jobs can be potentially lost to automation, by 2025, which is next year, 97 million new jobs could actually be created in areas like AI, data analysis, and green technology. So how are we adapting to these evolving needs and job requirements? We need to constantly upskill our workforce to meet the needs of today and tomorrow. So a culture of lifelong learning. And finally, something which is extremely crucial is to look at a culture of human intelligence, right? With the advent of AI, there is no doubt that hard skills can be automated, human capabilities can be augmented, but what about human connection? What about empathy? What about emotional intelligence? Take a pause and think about that. It's going to be extremely important to go back to the basics and start looking at human intelligence. So keeping these in mind, one advice I would have for all the leaders out there, right? If culture is for breakfast, it shapes everything else on the menu. It could eat collaboration for lunch and employee well-being for dinner. So invest time and resources in building and fostering a strong organization culture. Together, we need to commit to making our workplaces not just productive, but inspiring. That's my key message.
I love that. Culture is a big eater. It eats everything in its path. I want to understand a bit about bias because it's often quite subtle, very hard to root out. It's already inbuilt, programmed into each and every one of us, especially when you are trying to go through your normal day. It's everywhere. What have you found to be the most effective strategies for identifying and mitigating such unconscious bias in the workplace?
Our brains are processing 11 million bits of information every single second. And the brain can process only 50 pieces of that information with a conscious awareness. Rest of the information are actually being processed using mental shortcuts. And these mental shortcuts are our biases. There is a beautiful book by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow. He talks about two kinds of thinking, right? System 1 thinking and System 2 thinking. System 1 thinking is fast, automatic, that works based on mental shortcuts, our biases. And System 2 thinking is based on logic, facts, and conscious reasoning. And he says that System 1 thinking is dominant and we rely on it heavily for our daily activities and decision making. Let's talk about decisions for a second. On average, we are making about 35,000 decisions a day. What to eat, when to eat, where to go, should I call my mom, who do we hire, who do we promote, which project to invest more time in, which project to scale up, and many more, right? Now, having a bias as such is not bad or wrong. As crudely as you can put it, if you have a brain, you are biased because that's how our brains are wired. So there are more than 100 cognitive biases. Leveraging insights from the Neuro Leadership Institute, we can categorize these biases under the SEEDS framework. And this is a great way to identify some of the biases that you might have, right? Typically, decisions are based on, by and large, based on similarity, your experience, distance, and safety biases. Let's take a very quick stab at each of them. Similarity bias, right? I am like her, we went to the same school. Experience bias, have been there, done that, doesn't work. Experience bias, my gut tells me that it's right, so let's go ahead and do it anyways. Distance bias, we've all been at the receiving end on this one in some format, even during the pandemic or even now, which is I work better with someone in the same office as I am. And finally, safety bias, let's play it safe and not rock the boat at this point in time of this project because it's working well anyways. Right? Now, how do these biases impact our people and business decisions is where it kind of stands on the fence. Are they blocking us from hiring the right person, investing more time and effort in the right project, or providing the right opportunities to someone? If the answer is yes, that it's important that we address these biases. So if you look at mitigating biases, you can look at it at an individual or organization point of view. As an individual, self-awareness and acceptance is key. Challenge your own biases, right? Expand your network. Lunch with someone who's not like you once in a while. Listen with an open mind. Enjoy different perspectives. Participate in decoding unconscious bias training sessions. There are tons of resources out there. Practice empathy. And when in doubt, ask for help. It's as simple as that. Only to an organization, provide learning opportunities. Celebrate diversity, right? I'm a huge sponsor of Global Village events at the workplace where we create conscious possibilities to understand and celebrate different cultures. Have diverse interview panels, implement mentoring programs. In one of my previous organizations, we had developed a diversity mentoring program, pairing mentors and mentees from diverse backgrounds, breaking down barriers, fostering career development, and mutual growth. So irrespective, be it an individual or an organization, always start with awareness, take action, and foster accountability. The AAA model. That's how you identify and mitigate your biases.
I'm reminded of something that Abraham Lincoln said before. He said to an acquaintance, "I don't like that man. Let me get to know him better." And I think that is such a powerful statement because in today's context where we are constantly bombarded by social media of the same content over and over and over again, it is so easy to be very one-sided about certain things, especially on the political front, where everyone seems to have a position and getting more and more staunch about it. But if we are able to just open our eyes, open our hearts, open our minds to hear people with different perspectives, not expecting one to embrace those new ideas, but at least know that in today's complex world, there is never a one-colored answer. It's multifaceted, it's gray. There's no more black and white only. And with that, I hope people could really be more open-minded and look at things from a different lens altogether. And of course, with Lincoln saying such things, you can imagine how powerful it is with him at the leadership and driving all this downwards. So leaders obviously plays a huge part in shaping culture. And on that note, what are some of the ways that leaders can model the values they want to embody in their organization?
Leaders have a tons of work to do. So I'm a big fan of a couple of books. Number one, The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. This book talks about what makes successful teams function well together. So there, Coyle identifies 3 key elements, right? He talks about safety, vulnerability, and purpose. The second book is Kim Scott's Radical Candor. It's an amazing book which acts as a guide to giving and receiving honest feedback. So Kim talks about how the best kind of feedback is always both caring and direct, right? It's more like a tough love kind of a situation. So drawing on insights from both of these books and based on what's really worked across different organizations, I recommend three key strategies for leaders. Number one, embrace vulnerability. It's okay to be wrong. Traditionally, leadership has been associated with strength and infallibility, right? But showing vulnerability can be a powerful way to connect with your people and build trust and foster authenticity. So talk about your own challenges, talk about your own mistakes, talk about how you've grown and overcome those challenges and how growth is actually a continuous process. The second strategy is to lead by example, specifically when it comes to work-life balance. If a company is preaching work-life balance, but the leaders themselves constantly burn the midnight oil, it sends out a mixed message, right? So as a leader, model healthy work habits by taking breaks, encouraging time off, and respecting boundaries, and setting the tone of a culture that prioritizes employee well-being alongside performance. Now, I'm not talking about a 9 to 5 here. You do what works for you, but you don't expect everyone else to do what works for you. I recently received an email from a senior leader. It was over a weekend that included a very interesting postscript. It said something like, I'm not expecting a response from you over this weekend. And this email was sent on a weekend to fit my own personal work schedule. It doesn't have to drive yours. Working along that lines, a great way to set an example and set a tone. And the third strategy is to provide feedback and recognize. Now, feedback is a gift that needs to be given often by leaders. And you need to keep it honest, keep it direct, and empower the employees, your people, to do the same as well. And recognize and reward people who uphold company values, right? Example, if innovation is a core value, the leader should empower people to experiment with new ideas, make mistakes, and celebrate these successful innovations and the not so successful innovations as well, however big or small. So, vulnerability, lead by example, and provide feedback and recognize. I think very, very important for every leader when it comes to shaping the culture.
Pick one, work from home or work from office.
Work from home.
In a sentence, describe your personal leadership philosophy.
Lead with your heart.
What is the best HR advice you have ever received or given?
An effective HR is one who doesn't always look at the policy and say, this is what can be done. Policies are there so you can manage exception.
Name one HR trend or innovation that excites you the most.
AI in learning, AI, automation, everything AI.
Last question, what is the most common HR myth or misconception that you want to debunk?
HR can remember names really well.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Ramya. Lovely speaking with you to help us understand more about culture, culture building, transformation, and also to hear about your personal stories on how all this came about.
Thanks for this opportunity, Adrian. I had a fantastic time. Wonderful talking about culture transformation with you. Have a good one.